Thank you very much. I feel to start off, I need to kind of confirm two things. One is I am actually a human. If you look at my corporate photo, I find it a little bit too glossy and clinical, so I thought I'd share some photos of me, the human, the person. And the other thing I need to confirm is I do in fact work in HR. In fact, I accidentally fell into HR about 12 years ago, and I absolutely love it. I never went to uni thinking I was going to be in HR, but I can't imagine actually leaving. The thing that I love about HR is that it is in almost every company in the world and in almost every country in the world. It has a really, really valuable role to play in how organisations shape themselves. And when you consider the mantra that our company are our people, our company is our people, that HR's role is making sure that the company truly lives that mantra. The thing is, though, I fundamentally believe that HR does need to change and adapt to become fit for the 21st century. And what I want to share with you today are some of the things that we've been experimenting with in Sky HR that are allowing us to make sure that we are truly putting the human back into our company. So if I don't particularly feel sociable at a barbecue and someone asks me the inevitable question, what do you do? I always say HR. And they always walk away from me. I think that HR is a function that is actually quite misunderstood and in some cases feared within organisations. You can imagine that the words that will strike fear into your heart more than most at work would be, HR's looking for you. So I feel that HR, what I've been surprised by is the more that I've actually gone out and spoken to people to try and understand what they think HR does, what they tell me is really, really simple. It's to hire and fire people. That's what HR does. And I go, oh, you're so wrong. But that's what they believe. That's actually the reputation that HR has for a lot of people. And we might want to not wish it to be true, but if you ask people that question, that is generally the answer that they will give you. So I fundamentally don't believe it's true. In fact, HR has got a lot of value to add to almost every company that it's part of. And I'd like to actually put the challenge to you, or get straight into an exercise to start off with. I checked the attendance list, about a third of the people in this room, just purely going on job titles, are based in HR. So hopefully you've got a couple of those at your table. But I'd actually like you to grab a piece of paper and a pen. I want you to see how many practices and big processes you can think of that are HR's contribution to a company. Okay, I'm going to give you two to start you off. Basically, hiring and firing. Okay, so you've got a big advantage over here with Rosie. You're fine. This table will come up with lots. I stopped when I got to 21. So your challenge in 3 minutes is to think of at least 21 processes or practices that HR contributes to most companies in the world. Go. Okay, let's see if you passed the HR test, and if you don't, HR's looking for you. I'm going to just reveal 21. You can see how you went. These are my words. You can replace them with synonyms if you prefer. See how many you got, and I'll probably miss some that you've come up with as well. But here's the point. People are ticking, how many have I got? The point was to actually indicate that as organisations over the sort of late 20th century and into the 21st century have got more complex, what HR has done is got more complex. So let me bring that to a point. Let me choose one of these. Let me choose number 9. Can you raise your hand in this room if you work for a company that has stated values? So they're we have company values. Okay, thank you. Who has company or behaviours? These are the behaviours that are important to us as a company. Okay. Who has competencies or capabilities? Okay. Who has all 3 of the above? And who can tell me what they all are? I won't. In fact, if you're from HR, you might actually be able to answer that question, but I can tell you that the average employee probably can't. And so what's happened over time is that The reason that people don't know what HR does is because we've become too complex. Some people actually don't care about what HR does because they see it as overcomplex, a waste of time, and something that is quite frustrating. And there's a whole bunch of other people that just think HR's bollocks, right? Now, I have good chats with them, but this is the point. Actually, HR is ripe for actually making its contribution to organisations different. But the way that we're going to have to make that difference happen is by doing something about either the size of this list or the way in which we do all of these things. So the reality is that tech has changed the world. Okay, there's no denying that, and there's only going to get more of it. And what you start to see is that, I've missed a point, okay? Thank you. Slide. I want you to go back through your list, and I want you to identify, this is where you can start to do some homework for when you go back tomorrow. From your list, I want you to identify all the processes or practices that you think the average employee would consider useful. They go, God, I'm so glad that HR has created that process for me. It adds so much value to my life. The second question would be, okay, maybe I didn't get any of those. Which ones would the average employee say are really simple? Really simple. HR's made that super simple. And lastly, here's the challenging one. How many of the average employee would go, that HR process, love it. Love it. So enjoyable. So interesting. So can I get you to go through your list and see how many you can actually stretch to find to go into one or more of those criteria? Have a go. Have a go. Can I get a show of hands for how many people were able to identify, let's say, 5 or more that met any of these criteria? Which ones have you got?
Most of them are useful.
Most of them are useful. Great. Give me an example.
Learning and development, payroll.
There are a couple on this list, you're right, like benefits and payroll that most people do find intensely useful. And well-being, excellent. I should have had that one up there as well. How many people weren't able to get to 5? There's quite a few. You have to put your hands up. How many of you weren't able to get to 5 that met the criteria of useful, simple, or enjoyable? Did anyone have an enjoyable one?
Salaries.
Salaries, yeah, pay. Yay. Some of trading, yeah, great. So the good news is that we are capable, as a function, of making things one of these. And it's actually quite an important metric to start to gauge our work against as we go into kind of the next decade and beyond. If the things that we're creating in HR are not of use, then actually HR's role in the company is much less useful. Okay? And I think we can start to hold ourselves to a much higher standard of contribution today than we have perhaps in the past. And that's why I'm actually genuinely excited to work in HR and really proud to be an HR professional. So one of the things that's happened is obviously technology has had a massive impact on our experience. And if you work for a company that has customers, then you almost certainly have realised this growing obsession around customer experience. That is the thing that companies are striving to be brilliant at, because if they don't, what happens to them as a company? They die. Okay, well said. You can't compete as a company if you are not starting to put your customers more and more at the centre of what you do. And Amazon has just absolutely blown that criteria out of the water, that standard out of the water. UX, user experience, if you're a company that creates products, then particularly if you design products, then user experience is something that, again, you are obsessed about. And this is something that Apple actually really, again, raised the standard on completely. And this is the one that actually I get really excited about, that the emerging role for HR to play is in the world of employee experience. also known as EX. So we now have our own acronym that we can actually play with. And I think the thing that is similar with all of these three things is it's actually about delighting people. Customer experience is about delighting our customers, because if we delight them, then they buy more from us, they tell other people, they come back. If we design a product that delights people in terms of its user experience, then they keep using it, they tell others, they buy more. And the employee experience is about how do we have employees that are delighted to work for our company, that believe that we actually do truly see people as the heart of our business. And this is a really emerging field. It's one that I think we could even see HR go from being personnel to HR to people experience, and actually see that role change over time. I think employee experience is HR's destiny, to sound quite dramatic. And the reason for that is because HR's role about putting the human back, as our world and our workplace becomes more technology driven, which is like devoid of the human, that actually our role can be how do we help humans and machines work really well together? How can we actually help them delight each other? And I think that's something that is something to go after. The trouble is that we can't reach our destiny if we continue to do what we've always done. Okay, and this is where the big opportunity is. We have to actually be really willing to embrace new mindsets and methods. And I'm actually going to talk with you about two of them this afternoon that we have, and I will use this word intentionally, been experimenting with in our team in HR at Sky, because there is no roadmap, there is no blueprint, there is no best practice. You just have to be willing to give something different a go. And we decided to do that. And the two things that I want to talk to you about are actually design thinking and Agile. I get a sense of who's heard of design thinking before, okay, and who's heard of Agile before. Okay, so more have heard about Agile. Okay, so actually for me these two things go really hand in hand. Design thinking is simplified as problem finding, and it's a really important component before Agile can really be effective, because Agile in its simplest form is about problem solving. As you can see, think and make. And what the key thing here is that if you don't truly understand the problem that you are trying to solve, then it doesn't actually matter what method you use for solving the problem. So these two go really hand in hand. I'm going to give you an example. One of the things that we've really gone after this year, so we've been working with Agile for about 3 years, been working, playing with design thinking since last year. And one that we've really gone after, so this is a very recent story, we're kind of live in it right now, is we went after number 13 on my list, career development, with design thinking. So let's think about career development. It's a really hot topic. Who does see it as a real priority for their organisation? Okay, about half of you. It's a really hot topic for us. For us, career development is one of the main reasons going forward that people will either choose to join our company or will choose to leave, because they don't see progression, they don't see growth. So we really wanted to crack this. The problem is that if we went after that in the way that HR always has, then actually I truly believe we won't solve the problem. So I'm going to list here all the ways that HR might do it, and I do have to confess I have done almost every one of these in my career, and you can help me work out why this wouldn't have solved the problem. So firstly, we could look into our HR best practice guide, or our HR toolkit, and look for an answer to career development. And this is actually what happened to me when I got given the challenge of career development, and I was told the answer to career development was job architecture. And I went, no, it's not. If we had done that, I believe we would not have solved the problem. Could have hired a consultant of any price to tell me, give me advice about how to solve this problem, and I wouldn't have solved the problem. I could have created some resources and some guidelines, converted them into PDFs, put them on our LMS, made them available to everybody, done that many times. I could have created a microsite dedicated to career, hoping that people could find it when they needed it most, but they probably couldn't. I could have created competency frameworks galore and career paths galore, and hope, Rosie's rolling her eyes over here, and hope that they're not out of date in about 3 days, because my company changes all the time. I could have rolled out a training solution called Navigate Your Career at Sky. Or I could have procured a new piece of HR technology that has been promised to me, because I don't truly understand what it does, that it's going to solve all of my career problems for me. Has anyone done any of these things? Okay, thank you, Rosie. I've done all of them. Now, what's the problem here? And that is the key question. Do we even know what the problem is? And if we don't start with finding out what the problem is, we can't possibly solve it. So here's what we've done. For what it's worth, I'll tell you, it's an experiment, it's imperfect, but to share to you that it's worth a go, is that we embrace design thinking, which is about problem finding. And you always start design thinking with a really great question. And if there's one nickable you take today, it would be any question that starts with how might we, almost certainly will get a different conversation than if you started it with what can we. So how is action focused rather than what, which is a thing or a noun. Might is an openness to possibility. Okay, we don't know the answer, whereas can says almost like it's like a capability question. And we is about collaboration. Okay, how might we opens up the conversation. So we went after the question, how might we help people at Sky have a fulfilling career? It's a big, bold question, but we went after it. And what my team did is then embrace the kind of design thinking model. What is, what if, what wows, what works? I'll take you through. So this started in February, so this is like hot off the press. So what they did with what is where you actually go and talk to people about what, in this case, career means to them, what they think the obstacles are, what has helped them in their career, where they feel that it's been easy and where it's been difficult. And my team in 8 work days spoke to 25 employees, new starters, people who were leaving or had left Sky, people who had been there for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. They spoke to them face to face, so in person, for 90 minutes. And the thing that we were stunned by is that, I don't know about you, but Sky has a back-to-back meeting culture, and to get time into people's diaries, you need about 6 weeks' notice. People fell over themselves to give 90 minutes of their diary to talk about this. What does that tell you about this topic? It's really, really important to people. And what we found out their pain points, we found out their motivations, we understood that career actually means about 8 different things to people. And if we didn't ask those questions, again, we probably would have solved the wrong problem. The second thing that we then did was go after what if. So this is where you actually, and importantly, you get employees, our people, involved in the brainstorming. They actually come in and help us with the creative thinking. So this whole way through with design thinking, the principle is co-creation. HR doesn't have to have the answers. We don't have to know what the right thing is. The best way that we're going to solve it is by asking our people to help us solve it for them. Because this is about solving something for the employee, for the person, not for HR. That's a really key difference. The third thing, what wows. So what the team then does is take all of this data and all of this insight and comes up with 4 ideas that it thinks people will actually respond well to. It thinks that people will go, wow. And it might do it up as a drawing. I think they did one of them up as Lego. It doesn't matter, it's to try and represent the idea. And then again, they go back and they go, I want to present this idea to you. And they're not actually really that interested in what the person says. What do you think they're looking at? Their reaction, okay? So if I show you an idea, what will your face do immediately? It'll either light up and go, wow, that's a great idea, or they'll do this. And if they do that, then we probably haven't quite nailed the idea, okay? But in this instance, what we're doing is we're presenting an idea. It's really risky. I've got to tell you, people don't actually like presenting ideas for critique, so it is quite a bold and brave move. But what they're looking for is what they look like, what their body language is. Because remember, what employee experience is about is delighting people, creating a real wow experience. And again, design thinking allows you to kind of go through that process. So where we're at the moment is we're in the what works phase. So The important thing here is this has taken 8 weeks. It's cost no money. So you might think, Sky, big company, big money, not in my budget. And so the goal here is we've done a lot with very little, okay, which makes it so accessible to so many companies and HR teams. And what we've got is we've actually got 3 ideas that passed the what wows criteria. So one of them got dumped. And what we're going to do throughout the summer is we're going to now spend a little bit of money to take them from a sketch into something that people can kind of touch and feel. And we're going to see which of them actually solve the problem. So people actually say to us, that was really useful. It helped me feel like I could navigate my career. It was super simple. Okay, I could use this again and again. I actually enjoyed using it. Okay, I would recommend it to others. And if we can meet at least 2 of those criteria for each of our ideas, then we will go to the stage where we actually invest some more money. And all of this is done iteratively, and this is the really key thing, and this is where Agile actually comes in. So Agile, click. Has anyone seen this diagram before? It's just a really easy way to describe Agile. So basically, MVP, minimum valuable product, some people say viable product. What we're about is what HR, and I've got to tell you, I have been a legend at this my whole career. I've been great at telling people to wait while I build something bright and shiny. It's going to be awesome. You're going to love it. But you have to wait, okay? And my record to date is I told people to wait and made them wait 12 months for a leadership development program. That's not cool. You can't do that in 2019. So what happens is, what MVPs work like is, what's the problem we're trying to solve here? What's the problem, you think? Thank you. To get from A to B faster. Thank you. Okay? So HR's taken the brief and gone, then we need a car. It's like, no, that's actually not true. What we need to look at is to get from A to B faster, we need something with wheels. So let's start with a skateboard. Okay? And they go, I didn't really enjoy the skateboard experience. It was a bit wobbly. Okay, well, let's give you a handle. Okay, I'm on my scooter, not feeling too cool. I am getting there faster, but I need something even faster. Okay, well, let's give you a bike. Let's give you a motorbike. And now I'd like to be more protected from the elements. I'd like to feel a bit safer. I'll give you a car. And actually, what you've been learning all the way along is what people liked and didn't like. And actually, we've always been surprised in the last 3 years how many times we've given people a skateboard and it's been absolutely enough. Absolutely enough. So what we're going to be doing is going into the summer, we're going to take our 3 ideas, we're going to test it with 1,000 employees, and going into then the autumn, we'll take the 1 or the 2 or the 3 that have passed the What Works test, and we'll give it a bit more money and a bit more investment. But the key thing in that is we'll come out of it having a lot more confidence that we're actually solving the problem, and we'll have 1,000 of our own people advocating for that solution. And this is how you develop employee experiences. So to conclude, my name is Tracey, and I'm putting the human back into human resources. Thank you very much.